Positive Living, Positive Homes survey got started. So basically it was an invitation to people in 3 communities, Vancouver, Kamloops, and Prince George, to join in and participate and give their input into what housing, the housing situation is like for them as in relation to how they're living with HIV. The survey itself is actually closed. I just wanted to kind of give you a bit of context about how it got started. And so joining us today is Mona from Pacific AIDS Network. And she basically has some updates, or she basically has a report on what was discovered in the survey itself. So she's going to do a little presentation for us. Before we get started though, I just want to acknowledge our sponsors. So ViiV Healthcare, Merck, and Gilead are the sponsors for today's event, so thank you very much to them. Thank you to Positive Living for hosting this event, and thank you to PAN for supporting our initiatives in our education programs. Also, if everyone could please just turn off your cell phone or turn it to vibrate just as a courtesy. It's a smallish room, but the slightest noise can be an impact on everyone else. Just in terms of acknowledging that we are here on unceded Coast Salish territories, so including the Musqueam, the Salish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We want to thank them for allowing us to be on this land. Without further ado, there is our standard evaluation forms in front of you as well. But before you leave here today, if you wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes just to fill that out and give us some feedback on your experience in today's presentation, I would appreciate it. There are some handouts that we can take with you, and I'll turn it over to Mona.
Great, thanks, Brendan. So thank you so much for coming. I did not expect such a big audience either, so this is super exciting. And thanks so much, Jonesy, for hosting. So the Positive Living, Positive Homes, I'm gonna start referring to it as PLPH, just for the brevity of it. So it's a qualitative longitudinal community-based research study. And we started this research back in 2008. So PAN, our organization, has our annual fall conference every year. And that year particularly, people living with HIV came together at a forum and said housing is our priority. That requires collective advocacy effort from the sector. So that year we decided to move forward in exploring that issue in general and realized that we really needed to collect some in-depth qualitative stories from folks in order to give BC context to the housing programs and policies, and that's why we began this research. So it dates back quite a bit, 2008. So once we began, we decided to have 3 sites in BC, that's Greater Vancouver, Kamloops, and Prince George, like Brandon said. And we talked to people living with HIV, service providers, and policymakers in these 3 sites. They were all in-depth qualitative interviews. And for service providers and policymakers, we asked them about some successes and challenges in providing housing for folks living with HIV, particularly if they have those in sites, and if not, then sort of for other folks who might be coming from specific populations like chronic illness or homeless or low income, this type of things. So, and then for folks living with HIV, we asked them about their health and housing experiences, and stigma, substance use, anything that could potentially have an influence on your health and housing, essentially. So just to point out, what I'm sharing today only speaks to our participants, and this is not generalizable to the overall BC or Canada. In total, we spoke to 99 people living with HIV and 42 people who are providing services and making policies across 3 sites. I'm going to focus mostly on people living with HIV today. And at the end, I'll share a little bit about the service provider and policymaker data, but mostly on this one. So, our folks were on average 48 years of age. There was a pretty even gender split with a very small proportion self-identifying as transgender. 90%, so very high majority of our folks were on government assistance. Over 3/4 were living under $1,500 per month, and we had a diverse cultural backgrounds, but we did have quite a bit of folks self-exercises interests. Just to sort of brush big strokes with our participants on what that looked like, 61% of our folks, I'm going to focus on Greater Vancouver because that's where we're looking. So 61% are living in some kind of subsidized housing, 58% are living on their own, so by themselves, without roommates or other folks in the household. About a third said they're living in a one-bedroom apartment. 38 experienced 3 or more housing transitions in the previous 5 years. About a third again have been in current housing for less than 1 year. 27% of pets. A very large proportion of our participants were taking their HIV meds, and 42% were living with mental health issues. So for our folks, that was both self-identifying mental health issues as well as clinical diagnoses, and so this was commonly depression and anxiety for our folks. 27% said that they were using substances on a regular basis. 20% are also living with Hep C. 17% are living with mobility issues, and most commonly those are related to pain from neuropathy, arthritis, or injury, whether it be recent or past. So the rest of the presentation is mostly going to be like this, where we're going to be sharing stories and quotes because it's a qualitative study. I just want to, right off the bat, make a connection between health and housing. We all know that housing is key to all of our health, regardless of European status. But from our participants, they said that both security and stability were important factors to housing. And so I'm going to paint that picture. So they described that stability and security and housing were important, but this defines sort of security as like physical security, whether it be locks, having locks on the door, that kind of thing, where stability had to do with, it's like opposite of temporary housing. So that was an important aspect of housing, right? Whether you don't have to worry about where you're going to live tomorrow or next year, that kind of long-term sort of thing was around stability. And then housing affordability, of course, was an important part of the equation as well. Not surprisingly, feeling secure and stable in one's housing contributed to your mental health when you're not worried about things and you're less stressed, as well as physical health as well. And I will just read you the quote that just clearly illustrates for this person why secure housing is important for their health. So, well, I would say housing that is safe and secure physically, and then, like I said, financially affordable housing. It seems I'm more anchored by housing. That's why I've stayed in places longer, where I've known people who don't always care where they live, and they're more nomadic, and they travel a lot more. And wherever they lay their head down, that's sort of fun. Like I really need. Like housing always seemed to be my anchor, and I've been very thankful to always have that housing. So yeah, definitely. So it has to be some place you do feel safe physically, and then some place you obviously can. This quote illustrates the link between stable housing and health, and specifically this person links it to their HIV status. So he said, I lost ministry assistance because I couldn't make an appointment because I couldn't get a doctor's note and all these different things. If I was in a position and I had stable housing and that I wasn't in fear of losing my housing, I feel that I may not have been so stressed out. I might not have been so tired all the time. I may actually have been able to see a walk-in clinic that took the same time over and get assisted. I think having housing not be a barrier. I may have been able to address that before I became positive. I might not have been positive because my immune system might have been built up. There's so many different factors that could have happened to prevent housing. And so, as you can see, there's a clear connection between HIV and housing, and how that in turn affects health. Overall. And so majority of our participants are living on government assistance, as I said earlier. Also, many of our folks said that living with HIV is a challenge to their employment. So that's where the link was for a lot of our folks between health, HIV and health is that, HIV and housing is that employment piece or income piece. So living with HIV took away or reduced their ability and capacity to work. In many cases, participants explained that HIV lowered their energy or capacity to be able to work full-time hours or regular hours, and they often found themselves missing work. In other cases, there was stigma that prevented our folks from getting employment or staying employed. And as a result, many of our folks ended up with decreased income, and their housing suffered. Decreased income, of course, means less housing incomes, and participants are limited as to where they can live, and that affected how some participants lived in housing that was not good for their health, even though they didn't want to, like living in a neighborhood where they didn't feel good or safe, and living in a house where there might be mold, but they felt like they had no choice but to keep living in that place. Reduced income also meant higher stress around rent that affected folks' mental, emotional, physical health. And reduced income also meant less money for other important things like supplements, other social activities. And 67% of our participants living in Greater Vancouver actually were paying 30% or more of their income towards rent. Yet, not surprisingly, they prioritized rent, even if that meant missing meals or not being able to pay things for like phone like that. So, read quotes. I asked that person, how would you describe your experience with HIV in housing? And this person said, I think HIV, had I not had HIV, I probably wouldn't have gotten sick. I would have probably been working, still be employed, and I wouldn't have been on disability. I would have had more money. My house would have been better. I would have been, I wouldn't be around this neighborhood, and my life would have been different altogether, like normal, like other people, other than doing. Here, I just want to point out some of the overlaps between poor housing and poor health situation. We're not making any this positive last statements. We can't do that with this research, but we're just talking about coincidences when they overlap. So 51% of our participants had an illness episode that coincided with poor housing. 61% said that their HIV diagnosis coincided with poor housing. And 33% said that their lowest ever CD4 count coincided with poor housing. We also asked our folks, what's working in your current housing? And one important factor was the fit between people's preferences and their lifestyle and the neighborhood, right? The characteristic of the neighborhood. So if some folks like the bustling neighborhood and they were living in one, then of course that's for their health. And also security, physical security, as we talked about, was an important factor, as well as windows, balconies, plants. Those type of things are really also important for some of our folks. So one person said, I'm there, I have my own place, my own apartment, it's up there, nobody gets up there, and then we have a tight security with the door. So that supported that person's health. That's what was working for them. Another person I asked, how does the patio and window affect your health and well-being? Because that person said that that's what they liked about their home. And that person said, I love the patio because I've always, because I've been living in a basement suite, so now that I'm up there and there's nobody down, like they have needle exchange downstairs, nobody living downstairs. So on my patio, I have my flowers, a pot, and everything. I love the patio because something for me to put my flowers and things there, and because there's no barbecue, right? And the good thing about it, it's got a sliding door, and I got a good screen, so I just slide the door and have the screen on and still get a couple of cool things. And it's easier. We also asked what's not working for you, and the same factors that are working for some people, of course, are not working for others. One person said that they found balconies and windows problematic because their neighbors smoked, and so for them, it was a source of air and noise pollution, and that was their health. For other participants, community environment, that they were living in active negative influencers, so if they felt like they had no choice but to keep on living in the neighborhood, so that choice was really important, right? That wasn't good for them, and conclusion really is that there's no one-size-fits-all. Each individual's housing experience is unique. So you cannot make a blanket statement, and we all do this. I'm not talking about anything new here, right? But again, I'm talking about people's stories, and this is one very particular story. So I'm going to continue talking about what's not working. And for folks who are living close to the streets, it's things like not having access to basic amenities like toilets, laundry, showers, these type of things that are affecting their health. One of the cool things we did with our participants is we said, draw these for us where you stayed last night or where you're living now. And folks draw, and we asked, color in green and write in green anything that is, supporting your health, that things that are good for you. Color in red and write in red things that are not good for you or health, things that you find risky for your health. Yellow's neutral, purple's anything they needed or wanted but couldn't have, that they would like to have, things that would support their health, essentially. Sorry. So here, I asked this person, can you tell me the aspects that make it difficult for you to stay healthy, and color that in red? This person said, people use as washroom. She draws. So at the back, you can see people use as washroom. She wrote that. These dumpsters just big. So those are these rectangular things. The entire thing is open for anybody to walk into, open to anyone. On this side of the fence, so it's the top of the drawing, drug dealing. I can't draw trees, but these trees are full of animals. The entire site is full of garbage, which we clean continuously. But they kick us out every morning. They don't care. Bylaws want us out, and they threaten to take everything we can't carry. I was fairly stable while I was housed, even just taking your meds every night, having your meds every night to take, I always had a roof over my head, and shower facility with laundry, and take those things for granted when you don't have them, I tell you. Even running with just a couple of outfits and having to wash every other day, and I just always feel dirty. Even coming out of the shower, it's just dirty down here. So as you can see, the things she wrote in purple are things that would support her health that she doesn't have access to at this moment. We also analyzed why people were moving, why are people changing their housing. Many factors, of course. One is access to services. Folks like to move when, or they like to stay actually, especially close to downtown Vancouver. And that's where they have their main social and health services located. Some people move to live with somebody or to not live with somebody. And for a lot of our participants, like all of us, to live close to our family and friends, and especially kids. Kids are important. To belong to a community. For some of our participants, they have really strong affinities to certain communities in Greater Vancouver, especially, for example, like West End. I know I talked to some folks who said, no, not going anywhere else. I don't care if I have to move, it's still going to be within West End, those kind of things, because that's where they identify. And housing affordability, not surprising, evictions of people are forced to move, age and getting access to different types of housing that they didn't before, so I'll talk about this a little more later. And getting or losing access to subsidized housing, and sometimes this has good and bad consequences. I think I made a really bad assumption that, oh yeah, you gave access to subsidized housing, you moved there, it's all good. It might not be, so I'm going to read you a quote that down the street with that. So this person moved from downtown to Vancouver East, and the participant said, that was my support system, the East End. So her support system was in downtown where she used to live. So the East End, I had access to caseworkers, social workers, and this and that. And they told me this is what's happening such and such day. With all the women's shelters and centers at the East End, I didn't have to worry about her being able to cook up here where she moved to because she had access to subsidized housing. I don't have a clue where I am. So I asked, so you feel removed from your support system? She said, I've lost all my services and I have a problem with my memory loss. My skull was fractured in 2 places, so my brain and my memory was lost and affected. So this person was sharing later too that she started missing her appointments and things like that. So you can see how that could negatively affect somebody's health. Another theme that folks talked about that influenced their health and housing was roommates. Not surprisingly, some roommates were great. They were a good support system, whereas other roommates, it did not support their health because they actually removed and isolated themselves in their own rooms to not be with their roommates. Some folks said that they didn't feel comfortable being taking meds with their roommates. And some folks said that their sobriety was threatened with their roommates. So I'm going to read you a quote that's positive. This person is really supported by their roommate. So this person said, none of my friends really understand my disease. The only one that really does is my roommate, I guess. But no one else. They don't get it, man. I told my friends that a long time, so
Now, they found out that I had HIV, and I didn't want to feel like telling them because my own family deserted me because of it. He, the roommate, understands and that's that. I can't really say he supports me, that's all I know. He just supports me. He's my friend. Like, he hasn't deserted me when I had meningitis, he stuck by me and all that stuff. That shows true buddy, right? That shows a true buddy. And so, you know, he helped me out lots, and he's cooked for me, he's gone and got me stuff, he's taking care of me when I was sick. Aging was really another key theme, especially for our Vancouver folks. So many of our participants who have been living with HIV for a long time share that they did not have enough money saved for them to maintain their health and well into their older adulthood because they didn't expect to live this long. So the top quote demonstrates that that person said, you see, for a lot of us, we were not supposed to live that long, last. I'm sure you've heard that. We were, in a way, very indulgent of the time we had, so we didn't have put that much money aside, or didn't have to have. It was quite stupid on that level. There were also concerns about income changes as people age, so particularly getting a lower income as folks became older, so definitely loss of PWD or long-term disability payments. Some participants also share that they were concerned about their partner passing away, and that affected their ability to upkeep their rent, so they're losing more of that income right when their partner passes away, and ultimately that led to concerns about maintaining their housing. Losing a partner also meant loss of other supports like emotional, sexual, mental, and physical. Conversely, some found aging meant getting access to housing that they weren't able to access before, and the second quote demonstrates that. This person said, I think affordable housing is somebody who is working and can't afford housing, but people on disability can't. So it should be low income and probably subsidized. Right now, like I said, I'm turning 65 in a couple months. Me and my brother haven't talked. I should start looking into, if I were ever to move into places like Lions Club, Kiwanis, stuff like that, applying for seniors. We also have participants who didn't use community supports or services in the past because they felt like, oh, those are for people who really need it. And then they get older and you realize, oh my goodness, I need these services now. And then they struggle because they did not build those relationships and now they're feeling like they're in need of help. And so that was another issue that came with aging. Yeah. And then other issues related to aging included lack of appropriate care in long-term care facilities. So that has to do with folks who are working in these places and their awareness and knowledge on HIV. And the other portion that people spoke a lot about for our participants were the worker sensitivity about LGBTQ issues, and a lot of folks were concerned that they would have to go back into the closet when they moved into some of these places. Pets came up as one of the major themes too. As you know, pets are a huge part of people's lives and they promote health in many ways. So especially dogs, people said that it kept their physical and healthy pet, right? You have to go out and walk the dog that you're walking too. That's really straightforward. And then a high majority of our participants who owned a pet that said that their pets are not just good for physical health, but they really were good for mental and emotional health. Folks felt less isolated, and the connection and the love they had for their pets really helped them feel alive. So the top quote said, I've had depression my whole life, I go through cycles, and I know that my dogs keep me from isolating myself because they have to go to the bathroom, so they keep me engaged in the world. And just their company is really comforting. They're very important to me. But sometimes having pets also meant being denied for housing. And the second quote says, I went to go try another rental. They said, no, they won't let my dog. I love my dog. This is the last slide for our people living with HIV participants, sort of data, and stigma. This is sort of, it showed up in so many of our different questions. We had specific questions around stigma too. But anyways, I'll just read you the quotes because they just speak so loud and clear about what we need to do to address stigma and move forward in the sector. So one person said it was summer, so I had a top on and I had some wounds, and they asked me about them. So I said, does it matter? They're mosquito bites or whatever. And she kept digging at me, and I said, actually, I have AIDS because I don't I don't see any reason not to disclose. And she turned around and came back and said that the guy that's going to be managing the building didn't want to go in there because it would be too much of a problem. And I looked at her and said, yeah, but my partner, who's a male, lives us also, so it shouldn't be a problem. And she backtracked, ended up giving me our damage cost back. Another person said, if I'm feeling stigma or bullied, I don't stick around. That's another reason why I still leave is because I get stigma and bullied all the time and I get bullied all the time. There's some people on the street that know me, that don't like me. They call me bad name. They put me down. That's why I stay home, to stay safe. The last quote, I think is pretty powerful. This person said, we have service providers here who still don't have the knowledge of HIV. HIV is manageable. No one is dying now. And the only reason why people are dying is because of stigma, and they stop accessing care and treatment because of discrimination. So I will quickly talk about some of the policymaker and service providers, what they said about some of the successes and challenges in providing housing for folks. So I'll speak to successes first. Rent determined based on income. So one of the folks that I talked to said that it doesn't matter, year over year, they do an assessment with that individual, and that individual pays 30% of their income, and that's it. And so challenge, of course, from the organizational perspective is that you have to operate within a lower budget, but that organization is still, that was their sort of philosophy, and that's what they're doing. I'll speak to a little bit later about like how to, well, okay, so then right now a big issue is like the federal government operating agreements are ending and expiring, and so folks are in nonprofit housing, social housing sector are needing to figure out social enterprise models. So Vancouver Native Housing Society opened up First Canada Art Hotel, boutique hotel, and they're using that funding to feed back into, the profits from that model, feeding back into social housing. They're, I think, subsidizing 24 units for their artists who are then putting their artwork into the art gallery that's attached to the hotel who's making profit. So it's like a little cycle. So those models are coming up, and folks are figuring out different ways around these sort of funding challenges. So that's a success as well. Affordable housing subsidy, the current providers speak a lot to that, but it's a really successful model when people are able to choose where they live. So affordable housing subsidies are not attached to units, it's attached to the individual. So you can go anywhere and live, right? And you still get that subsidy. So that choice is really important for folks. And partnering with municipalities for land. So the City of Vancouver can give a land, right? And then you incentivize the developers by waiving some of the costs or fast tracking their applications. If they say, okay, we will build rentals, purpose-built rental housing, or we will build social housing, those type of things. So building partnerships with municipalities and developers. It's a success too. Free electronic registry, that means one person sort of envisioned this as like a digital scan of people's IDs. So some of our folks who don't have a fixed address, so they're living in a more of a less stable sort of environments and situations, that could be a way for service providers to be able to access on their behalf or whatever, right? And then community voicemail, of course, is a way for folks to not lose touch with, they can maintain their waitlist positions and recent health, for example, because you do have to update your positions and so if folks don't have a phone, then this could be a way out. Allowing pets. No pet policy really is part of folks, and so I think Pam recently shared a link through our e-news. There's a no pet Let's End No Pet Policy petition going on. So if you're interested, I can give you Google, just come up and sign up, please. And then integrating research and evaluating findings, of course, right? Like what we should be striving for is evidence-based policies and guidelines. So what we're talking about today, what McLaren is producing with your research, we should be collectively speaking so that we could make our policy based on research and not politics. And then some of the challenges is that there's general lack of stock in affordable housing for everyone, and there's of course escalating rent on top of that, so that's not a good situation. Keeping federal government's investment while not creating a gap, like federal government's pushing it to provincial governments territory, but provincial government is not exactly, after, so we need to think about that, and people are need to think about that, like I said. And the government's tendency to view housing as an economic opportunity rather than a public health issue, so that's something we need to change. Policymakers and service providers working in silos, whether it be between ministries, Ministry of Health should be talking to Ministry of Transport and Education and Family, is that all right? NIMBYism is not in my backyard, and so folks, this goes back to stigma, when folks talk about sharing spaces with housing and services that are geared towards, people living in community or homeless people or whatever it is, folks have a lot of preconceived notions about what that's going to be like, and they don't want it in their backyard. Non-centralized housing registry. So BC Housing is trying to streamline that, and they have their own registry that a lot of nonprofit housing also using, but also I found that through talking to people that some of the health authorities and some of the nonprofit housing have their own systems anyway. So for individuals to navigate through that sort of system can be really difficult. And stigma, I already talked about that, yeah, but just public's general awareness, lack of awareness. Challenge, so education, training, things. That sort of marks the end of my presentation. Okay. Thank you, and yeah, happy to take.
Yeah, that's good.
Great. Yeah, and go ahead, Jim.
Just huge thanks to Mona and all the staff at PLAN for the work they've done. It's a great study. I think for many of us it reinforces what we already know. And one comment I'd like to make is around housing. We as a community in the HIV sector here, we need to come together into agencies and start lobbying for more housing. McLaren has done its best over the years. When we were allocated units at Mole Hill and affordable housing around the corner here, that was created through Cameron Gray, who was the Director of Housing at the city there. I've had talks with city staff, with the Director of Housing, and at this point they will not support our agency or even help us to get an allocation of even 4 or 5 units in all the affordable housing that the city are going to be building and being involved in. This community needs that, but I think we need to come together as a community into agency and speak with one voice. Because I think the funders and government need to see that. If they see us working individually, they're not going to support. So if something comes out of this in terms of a get-together with agencies working in the HIV sector, I know our board of directors have been talking about it. I'll put it out on the table now. McLaren would be happy to stick-handle that discussion, and just to see if we can start working closer together, because there's a whole other thing that's going to hit, and that's the folks that are aging with HIV. You know, a lot of people dealing with mental health and addiction are covered through supportive housing and other housing. But those folks that are aging with HIV, the long-term survivors that are living in private rental in the West End, and there's still a lot of them, are getting squeezed right out. And we're not talking about affordable housing for people, we're talking about subsidized housing. And affordable housing rents in the downtown core, Quentin, you probably know, with Mole Hill. What's a one-bedroom at Mole Hill now going for if it's a market?
Well, we could start at around 600.
For a market?
Yeah.
Unsubsidized?
Yeah.
Okay, well the City of Vancouver's average now in the downtown in any new affordable housing development, you're looking at 17, 18, 1900. So immediately our folks that are living on fixed income and aging, we're squeezed right out. So what we need subsidized housing, more portable subsidies, but they've got to be more than what we can offer at $475 a month. That's the problem. So I'll leave it at that.
I just wanted to say I completely agree with that. You know, I've been other than at Mole Hill, I've been involved with some of the newer affordable housing developments around in different ways, and to be honest, there's not anything there that actually, you know, anybody at Mole Hill can move to. There's people have shown interest in moving from Moore Hill to some of the newer senior social housing in the West End. And actually they don't want them there. Too low income, or, you know, what actually could be mandated when these buildings are approved is that they have to allocate 4 or 5 units
Yeah.
for people who are living with HIV. That would be the best, so that when they're actually approving the development,
Yeah.
when they're approving the level of affordability, that's written
Yeah.
right in at the very
Yeah.
beginning. That's the only way that you're going to do this, because the operators don't give a shit. They don't want to
No.
house people with HIV, and they don't want to house people with low incomes.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, the city staff are not overly enthusiastic either. So it's got to be a broad community effort. We've got to put pressure on this city and other municipalities to start allocating units.
So maybe this is a good space to potentially gather folks' contact information if you're happy to be part of this conversation going forward. Is that a good idea?
That's
Maybe
fine,
we'll-
yeah.
Yeah, take people's name
Yeah.
and contact information, and if there's a working group or whatever, we have a contributing. And for PLPH, this is one activity that we're doing. We're also looking at other fundings, and we found recently there's a funding around sort of like knowledge translation that just means sharing findings, but like more of a event sort of type of funding that's available. So we were thinking of like the community forum where we can
Yeah.
engage community, like policymakers and city folks and those kind of things. So maybe that is a good place where we can collectively put in a proposal together or something like that. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah. So let's collect.
Yeah, happy to talk more on that.
Great. Sorry, Ross, you had a comment or a question, and
Yes, I would actually like to suggest a target or focus for such partnership at this point. Forgive me if I'm stumbling a bit in my speech. As previously noted, I've had a tooth out today. This building, this 11 floors of social housing above us here, opened less than a year ago. For other considerations, the city determined that it was going to be populated in the main, not exclusively, but in the main, by residents previously housed at a place called Rawdon Manor or something like that, principally elder Chinese people. They are here while the old Rawdon place is torn down and rebuilt, at which point the plan is they all move back there, which means there's going to be a substantial number of vacancies here at that time. When this place was being contemplated and built, we, and Kim knows this better than most, pressured the city to make it exclusively HIV housing. It was just a no-brainer as far as we were concerned, given the presence down here of AIDS Vancouver and Positive Living BC. They didn't go for it. There's no active bar against people living with HIV moving in here, but by the same token, there's no incentive of any sort. So when the Rawdon Manor folk move out, which will be sometime, presumably in the next 2 to 3 years, I would very much hope that we are prepared to see our community take advantage of that.
thank you. Yeah, agreed.
Several.
Yeah, so timing sounds like it's, yeah, timing is key, and that we need to consider.
Totally 100%, 110% on that one. Secondly, I think maybe as a group, because it's fairly time consuming, to put together a portfolio that indicates how much extra housing is being created in the GVRD, specifically Vancouver, let's take Vancouver period. And the continual battle for lack of education, the continual battle for affordable housing is ludicrous because the amount of new taxes pouring into the city via newly created housing is astronomical, and yet for some strange reason they can't find dollars to put to social housing. It's just mind-boggling, because if somebody actually put those numbers together saying the housing, the condo stock has increased by 20% over the last 3 years, which is definitely what it would be. Hence the tax base has increased provincially, and what the city gets with that is a fair chunk. So there's no reason why we can't create affordable housing or social housing.
Sounds like there's a lot of opportunities for here for
just to give this some national scope, this story is being played out across the country. This isn't just a Vancouver piece. This is across the country, in every major city, and in the rural towns. It's the same story, over and over and over. And the pressure from the cities onto the smaller communities is huge. The displacement piece is just this wave across the country, and it's the same issues. So it's not a Vancouver unique piece, but it's unique if you're in it. But it is across the nation. A paper was just came out of Toronto, Sean York published, same scenario, identical, health, housing. So we're in it with a lot of players.
I'd like to add to that on a national level that one of the problems with affordable housing in our country is that, what was it, 20 years ago or so, the federal government completely abdicated its responsibility for social housing and affordable housing and has left it up to the local municipalities and such. And there used to be tax incentives for developers to build projects that could have social affordable housing. I want to get away from affordable housing because for me, affordable to whom? Even people working full-time jobs, good jobs in the inner city can't afford housing. So our issue, I think, is more about low-income housing than affordable housing because obviously our incomes are much reduced. But I think we need to get the federal government back into some level of responsibility in housing for all Canadians. That just follows up on your comment, Darren, and it's not just our local problem, but
just following on that point, I mean, I think that, when you're talking about HIP housing or affordable housing, I mean, anything outside the federal government, donors, funders, they don't want to touch you because they said, well, that's government, we don't want to touch housing. So outside of that, funding is impossible. I mean, we've been struggling and people, pointed to that. Affordable subsidy program. I mean, we've been under threat constantly to raise money so that people can live anywhere in the community of their choice and so on. But that program has been constantly, people just don't want to fund anything to do with housing. So we up the creek for that panel here. You are constantly facing huge hurdles.
But this is a good opportunity, right? So we hear that, but when the research systematically gathers that information to be able to portray and illustrate, yes, portable subsidy is working and it is a successful model that shows scale that. And so let's take this as an opportunity to work together and just being mindful of time. This is I think where we have to end because evaluation is so important. My job title at Penn is evaluation engineer, so I take evaluation really seriously. I just want to make sure folks have enough time to do the evaluation before I leave. And also, so there's a positive living that Brandon talked about. I have my own evaluation here. Please prioritize PLBC evaluation sheet first. And if you have time at the end, I would love your feedback. This should take you only 3 minutes. If you don't have qualitative feedback, that's fine. But if that tick, 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 circle like really, really quick. So I'll just kind of pass these around as well.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending today. I think it was a really good discussion. Thank you to our sponsors, Steve, Merck, and Gilead, for supporting this event. Thank you to Mona for a really great presentation. Thank you to all of you for coming. I think for the most part, I got everyone's RSVP, so that worked really well. A couple of people, I'm not sure why I didn't get that message, but I will definitely investigate what happened. And for next time, we'll make sure that I contact you directly if you're interested in coming. And thank you again. So yeah, as soon as you finish your evaluations, again, everyone's free to go.